Vice President Joe Biden leaves today on a tour through Asia that brings him to Mongolia, Japan, and China. There, he'll find himself answering pointed questions about the downgrade of the United States credit rating and the near failure of Congress to avoid default. China is the United States' largest creditor, holding more than $1 trillion in treasuries. And some Chinese officials have been highly critical of the way Washington has handled itself in recent months. For more on this, we are joined by Jamie Metzl. He is the Executive Vice President of the Asia Society and a former staffer for then Senator Joe Biden. Thanks for being with us, Jamie.
Nice to see you, buddy.
All right, Vice President Biden is going to face a lot of questions. What do you think he's going to be asked? And more importantly, does he really need to reassure the Chinese?
Well, he's going to be asked whether Chinese holdings of U.S. dollars, U.S. treasuries, are safe, whether the United States is going to start quantitative easing, basically printing money, which is going to devalue China's currency holdings. Secondly, he's going to be asked about Taiwan. The United States has been put under enormous pressure by the Chinese government to not sell F-16CD fighter jets to Taiwan, and it's looking like the United States is backing down on those sales. So China has a lot of interest, and they're going to be pressing Vice President Biden very hard on these issues.
Is this tricky ground? Because how well is the relationship right now between the U.S. and China?
Well, it's not a great relationship, but it's a critically important relationship. The U.S.-China relationship is the most important bilateral relationship in the world. And yet there are huge issues separating the two countries. Economically, the United States wants China to float its currency, the RMB, and believes that it's undervalued. The United States wants China to do a much better job of protecting intellectual property rights, and particularly the rights of U.S. companies. China, on the other hand, is holding over $1 trillion of U.S. treasuries, and they want to make sure that those investments are secure. And when you look at the economic issues, military issues, there's a lot of tension. So this is a relationship in the balance. And Vice President Biden is visiting China at the time when there's going to be a leadership transition in China. And the Vice President of China, Xi Jinping, will likely be the next president. So a key goal of this mission will be to develop the relationship not only between Vice President Biden and Vice President Xi, but between the next generation of leadership of our two countries.
This could be very pivotal, and given the economics and the political background here, how much leverage does China have over the United States?
China has a lot of leverage over the United States, but the United States also has a lot of leverage over China. And both countries need to recognize this complex interdependence in order for the relationship to grow in the future. But certainly, if you owe somebody $1 trillion, they've got leverage over you.
But at the same time, China has its own problems. I mean, we're looking at a country that's dealing with its own economic and social issues. Also, workers demanding higher wages. We also saw what fallout from last month's bullet train disaster. So does Vice President Biden really have an opportunity here to say, hold on, I know you're upset with this, but you have some things in your own closet that you need to take care of?
Absolutely. China has huge problems. They have environmental problems. Inflation is at 6.5%, which is a huge pressure on the Chinese government. They're having all kinds of social unrest as their economy and their society begins this process of modernization. Their Gini coefficient, the inequality in their society is increasing. And they're under a lot of pressure, and they need the United States. They need access to our market. They need the United States to continue to play the stabilizing role it does in world affairs. They need a lot of other things. And the United States needs to be clear that we want to see China grow. We want China to become a more important player in the world. But China needs to take greater responsibility than it has.
So are you expecting any kind of real progress to come out of this?
I think we will see progress, but it will be behind the scenes. Both vice presidents aren't going to want to upstage the presidents who will be meeting later this year on the sidelines of APEC and the East Asia Summit. So we're not going to have the kind of major pronouncements and declarations that we would have on a presidential visit.
No doubt it's very important, though. Jamie Metzl, thanks so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.